Trucker Dump for September 11th, 2010, Episode 52. Non-truckers, don't take it for granted.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
G'day all, Todd McCann here. You know, I really can't believe it took me this long to get to this subject. This is one of those things that I don't think non-truckers would ever think about if someone like little old me didn't talk about it. Therefore, I'm just going to come right out and say it. Non-truckers, don't take it for granted. As I've stated before in an older article and podcast called Why I Do This, one of the main reasons I have an online presence is to inform non-truckers what it's like to live as an over-the-road trucker. Sure, bad days can come off sounding a bit whiny sometimes, but the idea is not to gain sympathy. The plan is to help people stop and think when they're around trucks. From what my non-trucker friends tell me, it's been working. Driving a truck isn't the hard part of trucking. Living the life is. Once you learn how to drive the monster truck on steroids, the actual driving is usually a pleasure. Beautiful sunrise and sunsets over the desert, a hillside full of fall foliage in the northeast, or a glimpse of Lake Coeur d'Alene in northern Idaho never get old. It also helps to not have a boss who's constantly trying to catch you surfing the web instead of working. Of course, there's also the threat of crossing snow-covered Rocky Mountains, fighting rush hour traffic, and the very existence of New York City, which is about as much fun as a titty twister from a professional arm wrestler. Still, the majority of time it beats staring at a cubicle wall and kissing some jerk's buttocks day after day. So what exactly is so hard about the trucking life? It's the little things that most non-truckers rarely, if ever, think about. For instance, when was the last time you had to wonder if your shower was going to have hot water? Had to worry about having good water pressure in that shower? Had to worry about even getting a shower? Had to get dressed in the middle of the night to take a leak, or worse? Had to blow a non-family member's pubic hair off your toilet seat? Had to brush your teeth while smelling someone else's butt funk, or 5 someone else's? Couldn't easily get to a hospital when you were puking up something that resembles cottage cheese and hot dog chunks? Had to be a contortionist to make your bed? Were up all day and then told you need to drive 500 miles. Got out of your vehicle and the parking lot smelled like boiling urine. Tried to pass a vehicle for 5 minutes before you gave up and got back behind the freak with the fickle right foot. Couldn't find a place to park. Had to sleep in a pool of your own sweaty BO. Couldn't sleep because your toes felt like they'd been dipped in liquid nitrogen. Got bad directions, cursed, missed your turn, cursed, and couldn't turn around for 5 miles, cursing the whole time. Were woke up and solicited by a hooker. Sorry, man, dreams don't count. Were separated from your spouse for over a week, and that happened every month. Were forced to have a marital spat over the phone. Missed your child's big event because you were in another state delivering a load of really important ketchup packets. Had to post a "Beware of falling objects" sign in your vehicle to remind you every time you open the cabinet door. Couldn't get to Starbucks when you really needed a fix. Realized that your restaurant choices were limited to where you could park. Had to get out of your vehicle 10 times just to back into a parking space, and you weren't 16 years old. Had to drive up a painstakingly long 6-mile hill at 25 miles an hour. Had to drive down a painstakingly long 6-mile hill at 25 miles an hour. Were told you couldn't drive any further until you got a nose hair-sized crack in your windshield repaired. Had to account for every 15-minute period of your day. Had to sit for 10 hours just 15 miles from home because the Department of Transportation has deemed that it's too dangerous to drive another 15 minutes. Had to live in the room the size of a walk-in closet, sometimes with another crabby person. Had to sleep in a bouncing bed. On second thought, don't answer that. Had to pack a suitcase to go to work. Had to do 15 loads of laundry in 30 hours. I should have bought stock in April Fresh Tide years ago. Had to pay twice as much as another driver for the exact same traffic violation. Were issued a driving under the influence after one beer. CDL holders can be, because we all know that the type of plastic card you hold makes all the difference in how your body handles booze. Had to fuel at a particular station, even if the lines were longer than an NBA star's criminal record. Had to take a particular route to work, even if it took longer than the way you'd prefer to go. Had to cancel a vacation because your employer couldn't get you home in time. Were told you could go home on Friday afternoon, but you didn't actually get there until the following Thursday. Got a whole 30-hour weekend after working for 3 or 4 weeks. Said TGIF, and it actually meant something. And had a friend that didn't involve an internet connection. I rest my case for now. I urge my non-trucking readers to appreciate the normal lives that they lead. Your life may seem mundane at times, but please don't take it for granted. When you're on your way to your weekend golf game or a baby shower, remember the truckers that are en route to the docks at Golfsmith and Babies R Us. Hopefully those thoughts carry over into your weekdays too. To the folks out there who are considering driving a truck for a living, I'd like you to think long and hard about what you're getting into. While it's true you'll never really know if you're cut out for the trucking life until you're actually doing it, you can do everything in your power to be informed before you try to enter the industry. Talk to truckers. Read about trucking. Ride along with the trucker for a week or more if you can manage it. Whatever you do, please don't get into trucking without careful consideration. The last thing we need out here is another whiny trucker. Just follow me on Twitter if you don't believe me.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Well, my feedback this time comes straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. If you remember, the last podcast was called Sucking It Up. Yes, that's the one I was whining about my life and how a guy named Wilson Hines was ahead of me in the game. Well, Wilson wrote in with some encouragement. Wilson writes, quote, "Anyone with gumption and a smart mind will take the measure of 2 things, what's said and what's done." End quote. Beowulf. I've never read Beowulf, but I might now. He goes on to say, we're reading Beowulf in British literature, and me being the literature freak I am, enjoyed Beowulf. I haven't read it since 12th grade. That quote was from a Coast Guardsman who met Beowulf as he was coming ashore to help the Danes defeat Grendel. I guess Grendel is how you pronounce that. Beowulf was telling him how he was just going to come ashore and whoop this creature's tail and fix all his troubles and make them a cream pie with a cherry on top. And this guardsman says, anyone with gumption and a sharp mind will take the measure of 2 things, what's said and what's done. In other words, Beowulf, that's nice, but show me the money. I wrote that phrase in my Rhodia 2010-2011 academic calendar, whatever that is. My Bible, right below the words I wrote years ago, Ipisma verba? Oh, you can tell my Latin's horrible. Or Latin for the very words. I've written that silly quote out of Beowulf on an Evernote, and I intend on living by that quote myself. If you want to bring God and His will into this foray, may you be appeased by these words. Quote, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. End quote. Proverbs 16:9. That was the English Standard Version, but I kind of like half the way the King James Version does it too. Together they would read, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. All that being said, it's real easy for me to sit here and say, well, you just need to man up and get your heart right and quit your job right now. You need to pump gas and go to the community college and get this crap out of the way. I haven't talked a whole lot, but some about how I'm doing this deal. Mrs. Nicky, that's his wife, is not an RN as of yet. Sorry, I goofed that, Wilson. Anyway, in May, she will have her nursing degree, and in June, she'll sit for her board exam. In August, she'll be enrolled at East Carolina University in the BSN program for a bachelor's in nursing, while she works a brand new job at the same time. Right now, we're penniless. Either one of my children literally have more money in their piggy banks than I have in Bank of America. Bummer. Interested in how I'm doing this? Here's the 1, 2, 3 skinny. I had 2 trucks. I was leased to my father and hauled my own freight. I did my own thing. I sold one of my trucks back to him, but not for cash. I'll get there in a minute. Then I have lent him my other truck free of rent, so to speak. My custom produce trailer is sitting in the yard and is only to be used in dire straits. The trade-off is I use my credit card for everything, and at the end of the month, the old man writes me a check. That's basically how it works in a nutshell, because it's much more complicated than this, but that is the baby, not the 9 months. If I gave you the 9 months, I'd be here for 9 months. I know that feeling. Everybody accuses me of being long-winded too, Wilson. Don't worry about it. He goes on. The last paragraph deduces the following. My family is wealthy. My old man won't admit that, and quite frankly, we're a working-class family. But as you drive by the countryside of America and you're thinking to yourself as you pass a huge farm with grain bins, barns, tractors, and 10 18-wheelers, wow, that guy's got everything. Yeah, he does. That's the life my dad leads. Everything clicked for him except for the year he lost $500,000 in farming in 1988. My dad thinks he's broke, but we are very, very wealthy, and I know this fact. And I mean wealth simply by the fact that he has a good name, a good family, and has amassed land and equipment over several decades. He's a boiled frog in that he doesn't see his wealth because he has acquired it over such a long period of time. But to you, if you were to have everything my father has laid in your lap, you'd think immediately, I'm rich! Let's bring the Lord God back into this equation. When I went to college the first time, it was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and my father had been full-time trucking for only 3 years. That was back in 1993. He sent me to Bible college, sent me a check every week, and paid everything. Oh, boy, that must be nice. When I ordered books at the beginning of the semester, I would order the textbooks, and then I'd have a huge bibliography list that I wanted and would order everything, and he just paid the bill. Before I went to college, my dad's business sucked, and after I went to Bible college to be a pastor, my dad's business flourished. 3 weeks ago, I made the decision to dive deep and go full-time. Our business has been very, very weak since all this financial crap started, and quite frankly, my old man started to worry. The very freaking day I committed to go full-time back to school, we got 2 large commitments on freight. Understand this, he has bought 2 trucks in the past 2 weeks and hired 3 new drivers to deal with all his new work. God has called me to do what I am doing. Ask yourself, has God called me to do what I desire to do? Remember that Proverbs 16:9 verse? God has called me into the field of biblical linguistics. I can hardly say that. I will be teaching young men Koine Greek, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Hebrew, Latin, French, German, probably Hittite, and Coptic. Holy cow. Whew. The same God that calls me to do something so crazy and big in the minds of most men also calls people to pump gas, and it has the very same value of importance in the eyes of God. I'm going to teach people to take the Bible and make that book a 4D beast in the hands of a pastor who will teach people the words of God. But the guy pumping gas is the man who will lead a soul to Christ. Both are necessary, and quite frankly, I think the gas guy has the job with the biggest potential. What has God called you to do? It doesn't have to be a biblical scholar, it only has to be the will of God, and then all of a sudden God takes your desire and shines the light on the path you're to take to accomplish that will. What you have to ask yourself is if God shines that light, is he big enough to make the ends meet financially? I'll let you figure that out for yourself, but quite frankly, my father didn't get those freight commitments until 2 hours after I made my own commitment to school. I love you, brother, and I'm praying for you and your wife, even if she is evil. Well, Wilson, she certainly is evil, but thanks for the prayers. I wrote back to him and said, and therein lies the problem. I can't really say I've been called to do anything in particular. I pray every day for guidance, but I still haven't figured out God's plan for me yet. I sometimes wish for the days of the Old Testament where an angel would appear and wrestle you into submission. One thing I do feel called to do is get myself off the road. I believe that being a witness for God is best done by setting an example for others by living a Christian life. Sure, there are some people who have the gift of witnessing to a total stranger, but I think 9 times out of 10, that approach isn't effective. So my goal right now is to get off the road and get into school. I've got some basic courses to take before I decide on a major, so I'll keep praying to God to pique my interest in something that'll point the way. If school isn't my calling, then I'll probably lose interest or make poor grades. I've got no doubt that God can and will provide for his people. However, the Bible also says that a man who doesn't take care of his family is worse than an unbeliever, and that the borrower is slave to the lender. Neither of those things sound like much fun, so I'll take it slow for now. There will come a day to jump. When that day comes, I'm counting on the fact that God packs a mean parachute bag. Well, sorry if some of you guys don't believe in all this God stuff. Wilson and I do, and that's good enough for us. If you don't like it, well, sorry, it's my podcast. Besides, I don't do this very often. Anyway, I'd appreciate your feedback. Doesn't have to be about God. It can be about anything. You can tell me I'm flat out wrong if you want to. I'm open to all kinds of opinions. I may not believe the way you do, but I'm certainly capable of carrying on a conversation without screaming and calling names. So, send in your comments. And here's how you get a hold of me. So what is it that I missed? What do you think people shouldn't take for granted? Let us all know by typing "Don't Take It For Granted" in the search bar at abouttruckdriving.com and leaving a comment. I can also be reached by email at truckerdump@gmail.com or on Twitter where I'm Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. And please pass this post along to all your non-trucking friends. Who knows? Maybe they'll start giving us truckers a bit more consideration out on the road. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, you can do so from iTunes. Think about leaving a review while you're there. And you can always subscribe to the written version too over at the website. Thanks. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way.